Welcome, everybody, to the Onward VR Master League Season 11, Week 8. My name is Nightfire with 2 E's. I'm joined by my co-caster Theta, and we are bringing you a middle-of-the-tier EU battle today. The Newbies versus Friendly Fire. And Theta, there's a lot to dig into with these two teams, but what are you thinking about this battle today?
Well, this is going to be an interesting one. These are two relatively new teams. Friendly Fire in their first season, and Newbies have been around, I believe, for I think season 8.
Their name does not is not representative of the players anymore.
Sure, yeah, and I only say relatively new because we in EU have teams like Beginners, Boss Fight, and all that been around since the very beginning. But yeah, Newbies for sure, not newbies to this game.
But either way, when you look at these two teams, the history between them is something interesting to sort of look at. These players are very familiar with each other. I mean, even if you think, I think one of one of them has been trained. They've trained. I mean, what's the you outlined it for me? What's the whole story?
Yeah, so I was talking to team captain for Friendly Fire, who is Mr. Tripp, and he was telling me that there's a lot of interconnection between these two teams. First of all, Foz used to be on Newbies. He's on Friendly Fire now. And Mr. Body and Mr. Shrimp really showed Mr. Tripp the ropes when they first started playing. And coincidentally, Mr. Tripp even played in his very first scrim ever for the Newbies. And this will in turn be the first time these teams have ever faced each other in competition. So obviously friendly terms, but once that clock timer starts going, it's bullets flying regardless.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see that sort of maybe additional sort of not grudge match, but effort that will go into this matchup, so that the one of the sides will beat one another. Who knows how that's going to shake up? It is truly a close ranked matchup, ranked 12 versus ranked 8, I think, in the EU side of things. And so, like I said, it is middle of the pack, ranked 14th. Excuse me, Newbies are 14th. Versus ranked 10th, Friendly Fire. So it is middle of the pack, but at the same time, still should be a pretty high-level matchup. And I do anticipate, good coordination, good comms. I'm excited to see who the standout players are on both of these teams, because frankly, I'm not terribly familiar with them. I don't think they've had a ton of coverage this season, and so I really want to see how both of these teams battle it out and what the EU's bringing in their top 20. That was the discussion we had yesterday. Was the top 20 in NA are very strong, and I there's no reason to believe that EU are any different. EU are you look at the Button Cup matchups; those were pretty close this season.
No doubt about it, and I can't wait to see these guys go off against each other, because EU has a distinct style of play that you don't see necessarily in NA. Now, there's some blending of the two, of course, because we're all playing the same game, but EU has its own sort of flavor, and we don't get nearly as many casts of those teams as we do on the NA teams, just because of scheduling and time differences. So I'm always personally excited to watch EU teams go at it.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see today. We do have the pick bans and map up on display. I think to some's dismay, the custom maps are off the table. Sand and Shipyard both banned. Both custom maps created by players in the VRML community. Frankly, some of my favorite maps to watch this season. They have been really exciting. But, it's a little bit different, because I haven't seen both of these maps banned yet in a match, and it leaves the old map pool completely open. Suburbia, Cargo, Quarantine, Snow Peak, Downfall, all of these old maps are still on the table, and even though they're old, there's plenty of fresh objectives, especially on Quarantine.
No doubt about it. Quarantine has become the most dynamic map in the game, because there's something like 12 spawn points and a whole bunch of new objectives, or I should say just a whole bunch of objectives in general, with a couple of new ones. For any new players out there, spawn points really matter, because as these two teams launch into the game, the defense does not know where the offense starts, and that's a big part of figuring out how to defend the objective. And so when you have this wide spectrum of potential spawn points, it makes the game a lot more difficult and complex to think about whenever you're playing defense. So the fact that they're playing on this map should show us some, I would imagine, pretty spicy rounds.
Yeah, this is going to be exciting. Definitely a map that requires good comms and good coordination. You know, suppressive fire smokes go a long way when you think about what utility items are going to be brought to the table. I think C4 also an element that we'll see here today. It can be placed in certain specific positions to deny entry. Actually, when I think about it, rarely see it used on Quarantine. So maybe not, but there's certainly some room for sniping. You know, the variety that Quarantine offers is always exciting. And like you said, with so many spawn points, it's really almost not impossible, but very difficult to determine where the offense is going to attack you. If you're not familiar with Onward, it is a 5 versus 5 military simulator. The goal is for one team to plant a bomb on an objective. The other team is defending that objective, preventing that bomb from being planted. Your standard search and destroy game mode. As soon as you're dead, you're out for the round. And if your whole team dies, the other team gets a point. If the attacking team detonates the bomb on objective, they get 2 points. And so really there's a tug and pull of, do I go for a cap? Do I just go for kills? What is the decisions that these players go through? How do they end up playing out the rounds? They go for these aggressive attacks on objectives. It's what we'll be looking at and analyzing for you up over the top as we dive into the action with Onward and the Newbies versus Friendly Fire in round 1.
And so far, it looks like we have an E spawn for Marsoc to start the round off, and 3 looks like, yeah, slightly to the north, and 2 going straight up the middle. Nobody is trying to make the cross into the south. Yeah, pretty normal to see a split similar to this. The south is a little dangerous to cross, and sending 3 heavy to the north makes sense on this objective. Now we have 2 people poking out from the hole in the tank courtyard, trying to find somebody hanging out in center burning if possible, but nobody's peeking so far.
And I mean, I just love to see the coordination here. You're in the top 20. You're going to get teams synced up, locked in. Everyone's moving together. Everyone's covering the angles. I mean, Fabs and McLock's watching over and tailing Shrimp as he makes his exit out. This trio working very nicely to roll out through this north side and make some progression up towards objective and really get themselves into a good position. If the trio can get pushed up to this wall, get control of the plain courtyard, I mean, the Friendly Fire defense has very little coverage here, and this is going to be a great entry line for the Newbies. They're going to be able to come up right through the wreckage of the plane and end up attacking objective, and ultimately it's going to come down to Monty and Embolism doing a lot of work.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this attack, not that they know it, but they have Cam Street in the south, or I should say in the hospital watching south, and if they just go around him, they turn him into a wasted gun, so to speak. They don't really have to worry too much about him. They can get onto the objective before he could even react to it. So this might work out even better than they were planning, assuming Cam Street stays in that position.
Yeah, he, of course, could be a threat as well, but he hasn't been watching this angle, to your point, and it really is allowing Jason to push up the street free and easy. And it's a big gap in the coverage. There's nobody watching this entire street, really. Embolism doesn't have an eye on it. Monty doesn't. Even Foz in the backside, he doesn't have a good perspective onto this street. And so there's a clear entryway, really with two lanes, and the Newbies seem to be taking both of those lanes. So this could be a very effective attack if they can manage to sync it all up.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that is if you go on camera 2 right now, you can get on the opposite side of Monty and Cap without him knowing it. So leaving this lane open is pretty dangerous. If Embolism especially goes down, that means they don't have eyes down on that side of the objective. And we've already seen a bunch of caps on that position so far this season. So I'll be curious to see if Newbies try to pull for that kind of cap.
Yeah, they are going pretty quiet through here. crouched down, no audio from their footsteps. There's the first shot, and that is a huge pickup. Completely weakens the on-objective defense, and now, like I said, Embolism has to be active, has to do a lot of work, and he hunts for Jason, who was right around him on the corner. He heard the footsteps from him, but it's a trade, and ultimately that works out for the Newbies. Section 1 can push around and get the res. Cam still hasn't rotated from his position, and so that res is going to come through. Cam is looking, but he can't look over the wall. The confirm comes through, and it's a 5v3 right now. Well, 3v3.
Yeah, right as you say that. Cam Street rotates from that position watching the south, and now he's aware of that attack going on in the center. This could completely change the dynamic of the attack depending on how he reacts to all of them in there. Because if he comes out and profiles himself just like that, yeah, it's a much more vulnerable position. And now Mr. Shrimp, yards away from the objective at the moment. Oh, really? Foz pops out and catches him.
Huge rotation from Foz there. If he doesn't do that, like you said, it's a cap. And you can see also in the distance, Mr. Tripp's rotating in. He's going to try and swing around and maybe have the backside of Faz. And we have an unfortunate bug where Tripp has completely changed his location and is now suddenly fighting the defense on objective. Foz is down, and Tripp finds himself in a 1v2, essentially. Faz hasn't come through yet. Cam's dead on the roof. He has to hold and defend.
Yeah, and what a grenade by Jason. I was watching that, and it landed right at the feet of Foz. There was nothing he could do about that. I don't think Jason knows that he got him, though. Because if he did, I would imagine they would try to get in there for the cap. But, yeah, they are real close. I don't know how accurate their kill count is, especially with that grenade kill, but they have to be at least smelling a cap possibility here. Oh. And instead, they just clean it up and finish that round. Newbies go up 1-0 over friendly fire.
Yeah, and so this is what I was talking about in our pre-show before the game started. The decision-making that ends up coming in when you have to decide, do we go for the kills? Do we finish off this team and get 1 point? Or do we push up, try and punch in a code, expose ourselves without a gun in hand, and ultimately get a little bit of a risky with it and try and get 2 points? Instead, they opt to secure the 1 point. It's a good start for sure for the Newbies. Their map pick, Marsoc round, 3 left alive. And like I said, just a great approach. Truly perfectly set up for the defense that was there for friendly fire. They had both of their lines of approach completely uncovered for the majority of their push up, and ultimately it was friendly fire trying to rotate and react. And to their credit, they did a pretty good job of rotating and reacting. I would have liked to see what would happen if Mr. Tripp hadn't teleported. That would have been fun. I think he would have had a nice flank position onto Foz, and then who knows what happens from there. But either way, a solid job from the Newbies, and ultimately a 1-0 lead. Now, what does friendly fire do on the offense?
And I think this is where you're going to see the big gaps in experience between the two, because like Newbies were working really, really well together, and you can see a lot of that's just a product of playing together over multiple seasons. And friendly fire, you know, I don't know too much about them, but I know that they're in their first season, and getting that timing and rotations, especially on defense, down just right, there's no shortcut. It just takes time and experience playing together with other people over and over again. And consequently, especially on quarantine, I think you're going to see an even bigger challenge on offense, because offense is always more dynamic, and yeah, those experiential gaps play a bigger role in my experience.
Yeah, I'm just looking at Friendly Fire's match history. They went 9-4 against Boss Fight. Boss Fight has been at the top of the ladder worldwide. So for them to be able to compete against them like that is pretty impressive. And so I'm not counting them out. And you know, again, we got to remember, this is a new team. They're fresh. For there to be gaps in coverage is almost really expected. They'll learn from this footage and come back, you know, the next week even better regardless. And so again, curious to see what the attack looks like. They get a quick spawn up in the north, and they're going to try and swing around hard over to the west side and attack from there.
Yeah, and McGlock's in an ambush position. Embolism and Foz coming down that hallway. And if they make any kind of noise, McGlock's will be in a great position to take them out. Oh, this is becoming a little bit more of a meta spot. I think people are checking it more and more frequently now, but if they're not careful, this could turn into a double for McGlock's.
He's going to have a quick transfer.
Oh, and there's one. Oh, but Foz gets the refrag, so saves his own team from taking too much damage, and now it's 4v4 instead of a potential 3v5.
Yeah, and suddenly they get a little bit weak on this north side coverage. Jason has multiple angles to worry about now. Cam Street's hunting for Fobs here. Fortunate that he hasn't spotted him. He's actually looking at the second floor, not at the first. Fobs in a spot that maybe a lot of folks wouldn't necessarily look. He's on in that stairwell corridor on the bottom floor. Certainly plenty exposed, but Cam just can't quite get the angle there, and so he's not going to spot him. Jason's going to stay stealthed in, and maybe Foz will run into Jason here in the next few seconds.
Yeah, meanwhile, on the opposite side of the map, Mr. Tripp and Monty crossing from north to south. Yeah, they are way behind. This is a gigantic gap between the two units on offense. There, Jason catches Foz in, let's see, yeah, near Impact Building in the backside of that. Looks like he might run into Cam Street in a moment as well. And the problem with having larger maps like this and being so disconnected is the other people in your team are not going to have any idea what just happened. They're just going to look down at their tablet and see dots disappearing.
Yeah, and a key element of playing at a high level is good comms, but Cam Street doesn't want to give away his position so he can execute Jason. Now that he has that kill, you can hear it. The comms come in. He can tell that they've downed one, they've lost one, and that the push is going to continue up on through this west side. And we're into a 3v3, and I'm liking the approach, frankly. I think Cam Street could do a lot of damage here. Their on-objective coverage is non-existent.
Yeah, they have a lot of lines looking around the objective, but they don't have anybody directly on it. Yeah, it looks like Mr. Shrimp reading our minds here. He's rotating to get closer to the objective, maybe get a slight west look as well. And Fab's looking in on the objective from center burning.
Yeah. Yeah, Cam is looking for that angle, though. Certainly aware that someone could be in that two-story, and if he takes control of this northwest building, he's going to have a lot of options to work with. He has a lot of clearing to do before he's comfortable with this building being his, but a lot of options in front of him. Section 1 may find himself in a bit of a battle soon enough. Tripp and Monty slowly approaching from the back, and I think actually the rotation that he went with here is because he heard the push come in from Tripp and Monty.
It just gets so tense on these big maps, especially you got 2 minutes left. You know you still have some distance to cover, and then you hear somebody near you, and now you've got to slow down. Oh, Section 1 and Tripp about to run into each other. Tripp looks away. It looks like Section's going to win that one, but Monty is right next to him. Is he going to get the refrag?
Behind hospital, moving to gas station.
Oh, he's holding the right angle. Section 1, for a second there, had an opportunity. I think Monty was radioing in some information to his team, but yeah, it turned into a 3v2 now. Section 1 still has to worry about Monty here, and you also got Cam Street, who has taken control of that second story.
Just so much tension in this hospital. Monty and Section right next to each other. Monty decides to rush the corner.
Oh,
ow, wins that trade. Good job on that corner push. And that leaves 2v2. That was critical because now they still have the capability to envelop the objective from opposite sides.
Oh, wow, and Cam Street with a great pickup. Mr. Shrimp gets tunnel visioned onto Monty. After Monty gets the kill, he tries to hunt for the pick, as does Fabs. And maybe they didn't have an accurate kill count because now it's a 2v1 and Fabs finds himself in a true pinch. He's got to worry about the second story, and Monty's applying the pressure. At the same time, they have to push. 30 seconds left, and Fabs catches the push coming through. Monty's putting out the suppressive fire. He knows Fabs is somewhere. The nade gets tossed, and Fabs catches himself empty-handed. Monty with the kill. Friendly fire come out just on top, and we are off to the races with this series. For second round, it is tied up.
Wow. And man, if it had just not been for that utility pull, I think Newbies would have had a second round there. But still, both rounds coming down to the last, I believe it was 20 seconds.
Yeah.
20, 30 seconds, something like that. So, yeah, lots and lots of tension in these rounds, having to clear all that space, trading back and forth. I think that bodes well for the rest of this match.
Yeah, indeed. And that's what you expect when you tune into a VRML matchup, right? Anywhere in the top 20, you know it's going to be good, especially when we're this deep into the season. And frankly, I think any game that you tune into now at the VRML is going to be good. You know, whether it's bronze or gold or diamond, it's going to be a fun matchup to watch simply because you're going to see two teams of equal skill duke it out. We're really, seeing two coordinated teams here end up getting around on Marsoc, and it really has me wondering what the rest of this series is going to hold. We're going to go to a old objective, but with some fresh defensive angles to hold from, and curious to see what the attack looks like from the Newbies on this. Haven't seen really any smokes come in yet, have we?
I don't think so.
No. Or not really much of any utility.
No, he tried to toss that nade at the very end, but other than that, you're right. I haven't seen that I can think of
Flashes,
any utility being
smokes.
used. Or actually, no, I take that back. Jason threw that nade in the first round and took out Foz, but other than that, I have not seen smokes, flashes, frags beyond those.
Yeah, those certainly go a long way in covering what is some pretty serious gaps on quarantine. Certainly, with the height element, that's something to be factored in, and you don't want to risk getting shot over the top of your smoke. But still, when you get close to that objective, a smoke could go a long way to deny vision on a cross or an entry up to it. So curious to see if we see any of that. Flashbangs, I think, also are just super good on this map. All the walls, you're just throwing flashes over those walls can be incredibly effective in the close quarters combat. But again, we'll see if that ends up coming through. We're only 2 rounds in. These teams still getting warmed up. This is only round 3.
Yeah, if you're new to Onward, really the first few rounds, especially between experienced teams, it's almost like when you're watching a boxing match and they're just kind of feeling each other out, trying to feel distance, kind of get a sense of what the other team is going to do. It's not until they get a few rounds under their belt that things really start to heat up.
Speaking of heating up, we have the quick spawn coming in here from the Newbies. They're going to be on the hunt for some early kills, and they may have just been identified by a nice angle from Embolism. I don't think yes, he does. He's spotted out McGlocks. And that's going to give Friendly Fire a lot of information. These shots coming through, everything is info. And Friendly Fire now know, okay, the spawn was over on the west side. They could technically shift their far extending south defense there. Pause getting very deep in the south and direct it more towards objective. And frankly, if they don't, they're at risk. Section 1 and Mr. Shrimp seem to be on approach to the objective. Section 1 is just a street away.
Yeah, I have to admit that position Foz is taking is pretty dangerous on this objective. He's so far away that if they lose a key person or two on objective, he's not going to be able to get back in time. And Section 1, like you said, across the street, he's probing the objective. His laser is hitting the gap right there. It looks like he was scanning the ambulance for a moment. If they pick Monty B somehow, if Section 1 can get in there, that could potentially turn into 2 points pretty quick.
Yeah, we got to keep an eye also on Mr. Trip. His position, he's tucked in. He's hearing Mr. Shrimp. It's the battle of the misters over here on the south side.
I think I downed someone over by Volk Twins. Possible Echo 3, but not.
Oh, look at that nade toss. Oh, wow. almost tried to throw it into the door. And if he didn't, just tried to nade the top of the roof.
Another one pushing you, Trip.
Okay, now Fabs coming into center burning. Looks like they're staging to cross the street, if I were to guess.
Yeah, they are certainly getting ready. I mean, they've had Section 1 clearing out this area this whole time, and still no rotation. Nothing from Foz, nothing from Cam. They're still holding their angles. It's risky.
Yeah, what I would predict is going to happen here, who knows if this will actually happen, but I would predict that they're going to start tossing utility onto the objective, or at least toss it onto the street to give themselves some cover so they can get there. Cam Street seems to have rotated. That might just put enough of a wrench in the machine there, because if they try to cross without any kind of cover, Cam will catch them now. That was a very smart rotation on his part.
Oh, he might actually find one on the corner of the wall there. They're not even looking for him here in this crevice, and he does take shots, finds the headshot onto Fabs. That's going to be a full kill, no res available. Still, though, Section 1 is there.
Bottom floor.
And now it's just all up to Section 1. Jason over by the garage, right around the corner from Mr. Tripp. They've got some time. Section 1's pretty close to the objective. There goes the first bit of utility. Jason smokes out Mr. Tripp, and Section 1 tosses smoke onto the objective. Flash is coming out as well. And Mr. Tripp pushes the corner, takes out Jason next to the gas station. And now it's all up to Section 1. Directly across the street from the objective. They have to know somebody's over there. Cam Street, I doubt he got that kill without getting a glimpse of Section 1 at the very least. A lot of lasers focused on that area.
And, you know, I was really expecting a bit more aggression from the Newbies push there. They were set up so early. You know, they got into position right away. They could have attacked into essentially an early 3v3 and then maybe a 4v3 into their advantage. But instead, they're just a touch late. Section 1 still does cross. If he kills Monty, he's on objective. He said pulls the pad out. Monty can't find the shots. Nobody can hit this person. Section 1 finally goes down in friendly fire with 5 left alive. Hold on to the defense. But even then, they really only had one. I mean, still a moment of opportunity. If he dies on the corner, you know, he could truly defend that objective from the defensive rotations. And so I don't know, another exciting round to say the least. And you know, just we'll see if the Newbies can put up a as solid defensive hold here.
For sure. And that was very good defensive play by Friendly Fire. And the only issue really was that Newbies just didn't push when they had the gap, because they allowed time for the defenders to rotate. That Cam Street rotation turned out to be critical. If Cam Street had stayed in their spot and they had pushed, that was likely a cap, because they had 2 people across the street, only 1 defender directly on objective with eyes, and more importantly, the ability to put eyes on the objective. And if they had taken him out, that's 2 points. That's a done deal. But they didn't. They just kind of created that staging position, and then the rest of their team got picked off. And Cam decided to come back and start watching that crossing, and that pretty much sealed the deal for them.
Yeah, that was a big rotation. Very needed. If that doesn't come through, they're in bad shape. Instead, that rotation ends up plugging a huge hole in their defensive coverage, and ultimately, even then, though, like I said, the shots don't land. The cross comes through, and then what? You know, there's walls denying him vision. You can't do a whole lot. So, fortunate, I suppose, again, that the Newbies didn't apply that early pressure that they had gained. And either way, a good solid hold from Friendly Fire. They're looking good right now. A 2-1 lead on map 1. They are... I don't know if I would consider them the underdogs per se, but they are a fresh team coming into the EU side of things, and they are looking good right now in Season 11. They are pushing up on this ladder. And right now they are ranked 10th, so they're looking to push in even deeper into the top 10. They want to challenge teams like Boss Fight again, like Beginners. They want to get up there and have another go at them because, well, they've done pretty good so far. Friendly Fire nearly beating the #1 team in the EU, but couldn't quite come out with that win, 9-4, ultimately going into the hands of Boss Fight. But they're a team that has been playing very good this season, and if anything, it might be the Newbies that I would consider to be the underdogs in this series. And I want to see if they can continue to sort of climb the ladder. They've had a long season, a long, battle of growth, if you will. Their MMR has continuously gone up every season, and now they are essentially the highest they've been as a team in MMR in the EU division. So maybe a bit of a test, if anything, for this Newbies squad. And so far, they've been stepping up to it, certainly playing well, and it's going to be a matter of doing it consistently and across 3 maps, which, as we know, Theta can get a little bit taxing.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I don't care who you are, you're going to feel drained after 3 maps in a match of Onward.
Especially when you're playing it at a competitive level, right? It adds to that adrenaline pump, the heart rate, everything. It amplifies it. And when you're finally done with that 3-game series, it's time for a nap for a lot of players.
Yeah, especially when you know you got all those people in venues watching you.
Oh, yeah. Quick shout out to all the folks watching in venues, Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, across all of the platforms that we toss out the stream. We do greatly appreciate you. And if you don't know what venues is, I highly recommend you go check it out. It's a really cool way to experience these games. You can watch these matches on a huge screen, basically a big movie theater screen with a bunch of people. You can hang out with your friends in a lobby while you watch the games. It is available on Quest and Quest 2. So if you have one of those mobile devices, mobile headsets, I highly recommend that you download venues and take a look, hang out with. It's really, honestly, one of my favorite ways to watch these games, and I'm very happy that we're doing it again for Onward on the weekends.
Definitely. And I just wanted to point out this position that McGlox has. I'm seeing this more and more on casts, but yeah, if you're not ready for this, and it looks like they're sending a lot of people towards the south, this can get dicey for the offense real quick.
It's something that I like seeing more late exposed angles. And when I say that, I mean that the only player he's going to be shooting is a player that is in no cover, that is crossing out in the middle of the open. That's what this angle is holding. It does miss the far rotation to the east, but it's still like you said, a very good late angle that the team never checks, doesn't flash, doesn't nade, can end up at least getting one, and then getting the team some information on the approach.
Yeah, and he's not so far detached that he couldn't rotate back and cover the objective. Although now he looks like he was just getting shot at, so he backed out. So much for that spot. But now he's in a position where he can watch. I presume he's going to keep his eyes somewhere near the south dunes at the very least, so he doesn't get crept on. But he can at least watch the objective now from his position.
Yeah, I feel like I rarely see such a heavy stack over into the east. I think almost a good rotation would be for Mr. Shrimp to just ditch, go to the other side of the wall he's on, completely expose himself to the west. And obviously, I'd say that knowing where the players are, Embolism would, I suppose, catch him out. But would give him a little bit more cover. He certainly doesn't need it. Boz goes down, and after he gets that kill, he's had enough of that position.
And this is one of those kind of quiet moments where everybody's getting themselves in position. Onward's one of those games where it's just a lot of tense, quiet moments followed by short bursts of intense activity. And you can see already utility coming out on the objective from Mr. Tripp at Tank Courtyard. And now the action truly kicks off.
That's a big pickup. McLox is down. Who's watching objective?
Let's see. So Mr. Shrimp should be rotating. Looks like he's coming around the corner now. He gets taken out, though. This is an open objective. And he's not focused on the objective either. He's watching more towards the east.
Yeah, smokes are on it, too. As I say that, they do dissipate. Shrimp's going to take the same peek that McGlocks took and ends up doing it at just the right time. Another pickup ends up going in from friendly fire, so it keeps it even into a 3-3. And the on-objective defense is basically Mr. Shrimp. I mean, Monty could just walk to objective.
Yeah, this is a danger. Oh, almost friendly fire from friendly fire onto Monty B.
Oh, from embolism.
He doesn't know this because, like you said, we have the bird's eye view. But if Monty B runs across the street right now, it's open. And embolism seems to be getting that idea. He is running to the objective. Jason's now getting on it. But if they get that pick, okay, there it is. Monty B now has a wide open lane to the objective.
Sometimes you just got to commit. It takes a little bit, but you have to commit. And it's something that we've seen be a bit of an issue for both these teams. They just can't seem to really risk it and go for the push. And Monty's now done it so late that he's going to have to challenge a couple of different players in Section 1. Peeks out, finds the kill. The Newbies, really both defenses, in my opinion, gifted the round there. Both offensive had plenty of, exposed lanes, to open lanes. But again, it's what we see, right? We have to, remind folks that this is a completely different game when you have the headset on, the pressure's on, the bullets are whizzing around you. You don't have outlines of players, lasers, any names over the heads of players, so you have to quickly identify who your team and enemy is. It's a very tactical experience when you're playing it. We obviously just make it easier for the viewer by adding in a couple of nice elements to help put the whole picture together, and ultimately you get to really see where there are these cracks in the defense, and hopefully both teams will kind of come back, look at the footage, and go, oh yeah, okay, we need to have somebody holding this angle because otherwise it's game over. And either way, a solid hold there from the Newbies to the point of who was it on the backside there? I think it was Mr. Shrimp.
Mr. Shrimp in the south.
He, again, doesn't have the information we have. So he was still concerned about that south rotation coming through simply because there was plenty of shots coming in from that south side, or that east side. He had reason to believe that someone could come from there. And so he was watching that east, but then also periodically checking on objective. And that periodic check, I mean, it's just how Onward goes, right? Sometimes as you peek, you find a person deciding to rotate, and sometimes as you rotate, someone decides to peek their angle again. You could have cleared an angle for a minute, and the second that you decide to go for a cross, someone then checks it, and you go down. It's just how Onward seems to always work out, and that's how it worked out quite well there for Mr. Shrimp, as we are now into that 2-2, and this is, a great series, a great map 1 to kick off this series.
No kidding. Yeah, I love to see how these teams play off against each other, and I think everybody, when you're in the headset, you don't like it to go to something like a 3-3, but when you're watching the game, it's obviously way more entertaining when you see these teams battling against each other. As a player, you generally just want it to go 4-0 in your favor and then move on to the next one. Friendly fire watching that south cross. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Now, this objective is an interesting one. I feel like it certainly can be capped. The north approach is, I think, more better utilized if attacked from the west, but it seems that they're going to go for that 3-2 split when you look at the overhead. They're going to try and commit one to the roof. Two are going to go into that burning building, the building that is just there at the nose of the downed plane, where they have one defender. They're going to try and take control of that, and if they can do that, then they do have pretty good footing. From there, I think they're going to try and send in from the west, from the tail end of that plane, and the pinch will come through, and it's just a matter of executing with that. This suppressive fire from roof to help shut down the angles that are inside this two-story here. Shut down embolism will come through, and this certainly seems to be the layout for the Newbies, and if they can execute it, I see it working quite well. It seems like a nice approach. That's my full round prediction for you.
I think you're on the right track. They're all sort of pointing around each other in this sort of half circle in the north, and they just need to start kind of taking territory, especially if they can take center burning. This could turn into a pretty spicy attack, but it all depends on how well they can deal with some of these more embedded defenders. Like Mr. Tripp and center burning is a big one, and then Foz and gas station will also be somebody they need to deal with. And if they do this right, they could, in some sense, almost just bypass everybody in the south and in the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, they really could. Like I said, when the push comes in, the suppressive fire from the roof will force embolism and Cam to stay tucked in. They'll try and look for some peaks, but if they get too peaky, they're going to go down from that LMG up on the roof, and so it's just going to be a matter of timing. When do they execute it? And that when, I think, is going to be when they have better footing over in the west, when Fabs and Section 1 are a little bit more pushed up. And maybe once Shrimp has eradicated Mr. Tripp from his defensive position, which I think is the plan.
Mr. Shrimp and McGlocks slowly creeping their way up to center burning. And if you're new to the game, you're not sure why we're calling it center burning. In the previous versions of this game, there were flames coming out of this building. Oh, and Mr. Tripp peeking out of that stairwell. Oh, they will not be able to see him if they come over this ridge. That is pitch black. Oh, and Mr. Shrimp does not realize. Yeah, Mr. Shrimp. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but
it had to have been. Oh, yeah, it had to have been. They know. They've done their research. They know that that's a solid defensive position. These players are not newbies, and Mr. Shrimp gets himself a huge kill. And I'm surprised to see that they're not taking control of burning, because once you can do that, you really just they would completely shut down the rotation even from coming in from that south defense that's stacked up over there. All three of those defenders wouldn't be able to get up to objective.
It looks like they're not interested in occupying center, although I agree with you. I think that would have been a good move, but it looks like they just want to send the full, not just the tip of the spear, they want to send the whole spear down onto the objective from the west.
Move traps a little bit from broken building.
Again, we have a different perspective. Jason is still over there. As I say that, he is now no longer over there. Foz with a nice little angle there. Catches one trying to go up to center burning, and he would have actually been a serious threat there to the push if Mr. Shrimp had come through. If we had been the decision makers, Theta, we might have committed 2 to death there, because Foz has a great angle.
Yeah, so in other words, don't listen to us if you're planning right now.
We're right some of the time, okay? We have the right idea, at least. Fabs, I just saw lasers squeak over the head of Foz for a second. So maybe there's obviously an idea that Foz is here. All these shots certainly giving away his position, but I really like the angle. He's got this tiny sliver of wall denying his vision from Shrimp and the like looking in here. And he's got clear coverage over to this side. He's going to look for Section 1 to peek. Oh, and he doesn't spot it. And Section 1, yeah, that was fortunate for Section 1 there that he didn't get ID'd by Foz. Foz was just tunneled in on a different angle.
Ooh, and Mr. Shrimp.
Yeah, this is bad news.
Spider crabbing his way along this backside. I don't think anybody's in a position to catch him if he does this. And if he... I'm surprised he's taking this angle.
Look at the huge rotation. Monty and Cam both realizing the issue. There's the nade that comes in. He tries to get the gun up. It comes up. The flash is there onto Monty, so Monty's completely blind, and McGlock's going to capitalize off of this. The whole team comes crashing down onto objective. That's a nicely executed play from the Newbies that ends up getting them a Marsoc W. They go up 3-2.
That was really, really well done, too. And, again, if you're kind of newer to Onward, really what you're trying to do on offense is create openings and then force reactions out of the defense that are not beneficial to them. And we really saw that because they were stacked up really hard on the opposite side of the objective. They realized the attack was coming. And at the end of it, they had no choice but to run onto the objective. And running out in open space, you're just bound to get picked off. And the Newbies had all positioned themselves to take advantage of that. So real vet play by the Newbies on that round.
Yeah, real solid job from them overall, and really making the right decisions. Again, if they had gone to that burning, I think they would have had themselves in a little bit more trouble than they needed to. The full spear over onto the west side, like you said, that ended up working out wonderfully for them. They got the picks they needed, and now they have the lead. They're up 3-2 on their map pick. They are a defensive round away from locking in this first map. We're just patiently waiting for a quick reconnect. I don't think it's a sub from what I'm seeing. It seems to be the same folk playing. Still the Mr. Battle going on here, but
Fortunately, it looks like that was pretty quick, at least.
Yeah.
We've had some matches with some technical difficulties that required a timeout or something. Looks like that one was pretty much off and on again. So should be able to get back in the round pretty quickly.
even so, they have been taking their time. I mean, this whole map one, right, has been these teams taking their time. They are really poking and prodding each other, and it truly seems like a really even battle between these two teams. Friendly Fire and the Newbies just duking it out. And, you know, I hyped up the Friendly Fire, but the Newbies have been also looking very good. I mean, they have had good setups on offense. They just hadn't executed quite perfectly on those setups. That was a perfect execution. You know, that was a good setup and a great execution. And if they continue to do that, I think they'll continue to get wins against Friendly Fire. And so Friendly Fire have to be a little bit worried about the Newbies right now. The Newbies wanting to climb up into that gold division, wanting to climb up into that top 10, because if you're into that, top 8 worldwide, then you get a chance to go into the finals and battle out for some serious prizing, which, I mean, when you look at all the sponsors for the league, all those prizes that come together, Theta, we'll talk about it when we have a little bit more free time. They are the full immersive package.
No doubt. And I just took a quick glance at the voting for this match. I think Friendly Fire, because of their recent performances and the momentum they've had, they are heavily favored 73-8 over Newbies in the voting.
Wow.
I think a lot of connoisseurs are maybe getting worried about their decision on that one. Newbies putting up a heck of a fight.
We had something similar happen yesterday, too, in the NA side of things. People not putting their faith in the new squads. And Theta, we talked about it. It's the beginning of a new era. It really is. So many new faces coming in, new teams being created, and new approaches to those teams, new levels of dedication, coaches, and certain specific roles for video. It's crazy to see the evolvement of these teams, but these new teams that are coming in dedicated and frankly well prepared. We're seeing that here with Friendly Fire, but the Newbies are doing well to counter it, and they've continued to improve, like I said, season to season. And now they're playing the best they've played yet.
Yeah, it's that age-old question of how much of a role does experience play? And can you find ways to kind of negate that experience? Some teams are finding they can. But again, sometimes you'll also have matches where the experienced teams just say, hey, no, we have the time in the game and map knowledge and all that to overcome those advantages. But as I say that, Mr. Shrimp looking straight down this line. Cam is about to come straight onto his laser. And, in a trade.
Yeah, like I said, these players know what they're doing. They're familiar. They've done their homework. They know that that's a defensive spot that they should be checking. Cam Street knows that when he peeks out there, he should be looking for someone there. He's ready to pull the trigger and ultimately gets the kill. Now we got to look at the rest of this attack. It is super stacked. It's full. onto the south side. Everyone's here for friendly fire, and the defense hasn't really rotated. They have 3 that are close, but Glocks is so far away that if they start to lose on objective defense, it's going to be a long rotation from him to come through to get into position. They can't get the res on the cam because Section 1 has coverage. Almost a team kill there. Mr. Tripp almost shoots Embolism, and we talk about that. They don't see the name tags over the heads. They don't see any of this information that we are relaying to the audience, and so very close to losing 1 for friendly fire. But the smoke comes in. Section 1's vision is denied, and Embolism can't get this res.
And there's just a gigantic intersection of lasers all around that smoke, both offense and defense. I think the moment somebody makes a cross, oh, as I say that, Fabs picks off Mr. Tripp through that tiny little angle. And now I think the defense has gotten wise, although McGlock's still way, way off in the west. This could get dangerous for them if McGlock stays put and they start losing people, like you said.
Yeah. Again, fortunate that friendly fire hasn't put their foot on the gas right now. They've gotten up into a great position. We've seen great setups from these teams, but just the attack, the execution becoming a little bit difficult, and we'll see. We'll see what this now 3v4 push looks like, but really it's a 3v3 because, again, Glocks is so far away. He's covering a different angle.
I think this is something we've seen from both teams to one degree or another, is they get close, they kind of stage up, and then they don't really commit, and then by the time they decide to commit, the defense is adjusted. And so now they're going to make this attack, but they've got 3 lasers covering every potential cap angle. This is going to be hard coming from the same angle now that they know where they are. And McGlock's now making his way back to the objective. They're going to have 4 defenders directly near objective. As I say that, Embolism runs out. And Foz. Oh, and Foz gets picked off by Fabs. Jason just around the wall from Embolism. Right on objective.
Oh, Jason tries to go for a utility piece, and... or Embolism does, excuse me. Jason finds that he's going to actually push off of the utility that's been deployed. Gets a bit of a different angle onto the back of Monty, and I don't think Monty's... oh, well, Monty is ready for that. Down he goes. It's a 1v3, and lots of rotations coming through. A very little angle there. The ankle's getting bit. And the Newbies lock in their map pick 4-2 with a solid defensive hold.
I have to say, there are probably some connoisseurs who are sweating bullets right now, worried about their connoisseur ranking after that set of rounds. Very well played by the Newbies. Friendly Fire coming very close on some of those rounds. I think just a few key, kind of a mix of mistakes and bad luck held them back from getting more rounds, but now they're going to have to go into whatever the next map is and really fight for their lives, because, again, if you're new to Onward, if you lose 2 maps, it is technically over. We'll still play all 3 maps, but the match is decided at that point. And it looks like we are headed to Subway. Oh, I just got notified by the team captain for Newbies that they are going to take a 5-minute timeout.
Okay. That's interesting. They've just come out with a solid map 1 performance. Maybe those 5 minutes start to sort of strategize for this upcoming map. Maybe caught off guard by the pick. I don't know. The map pool, like we said, was cut down. And, I wanted to talk about this. One of the points is that a good way to sort of surprise or maybe throw out some unique strats against a team like the Newbies would have been for Friendly Fire to pick a custom map, a map that is fresh into the Onward map pool rotation. For 10 seasons, we've played these maps. We've played the original maps that Onward has. This has been the only season that we've ever done custom maps, and so there's a lot of I don't know what the right proper word is, a lot of untrained players on these custom maps, and a lot of room for sneak strategies, new ways to get caps, new ways to defend and get wins, and unfortunately that's just not an option for Friendly Fire. They did ban Shipyard, so maybe they don't feel too comfortable on that new map themselves, but Sand getting banned from the Newbies cuts that custom map off, and it leaves us with the same old, so to speak. But even then, like I said, we still have fresh objectives too, so I'm excited to watch these two teams duke it out on whatever the map pool maps end up being. Map 2 is Subway, so we know what that's going to be. Map 3 it could be anything really. Cargo, Downfall, Snow Peak. The variety is there, and I don't know. What are you thinking if you're Friendly Fire now? You pick in the Subway. Maybe you feel the close quarters will give you the advantage. Quarantine is still pretty close quarters.
Well, I think if I'm in the newbie shoes, they're home. Even like if Friendly Fire takes this map, I want to put them on a map where I can have a pretty sustainable advantage against them one way or another, which in my case, I think would be Downfall. I think that's where I would personally take it, because it's usually an exchange of Volk rounds, and they've already shown they can attack on, to your point, kind of like medium-ish type maps. I would assume they can also kind of extend that out to long range.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you can really solidify your lead and put them in a position where they can't win anymore. Because especially if you're facing off against a newer team, Downfall is really the team, the novice, not friendly map. Let me put it that way. So that's what I would guess they're going to do if Friendly Fire takes this one.
Yeah, and I am looking at both rosters. They have full rosters, so that means they have 5 active players, but then 3 on their roster that are there for subs or for certain situations. And I'm looking now at our who's in the lobby, and I'm wondering if maybe this little 5-minute break is also to allow for their subs to come in. We very well could see some subs get brought in for this specific map. We do see it happen at the high level, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's the situation here, where they're trying to bring in a player that is specifically good at playing Subway. They're good at maybe deploying C4 or good at flashbangs, utility. Who knows what the case is, but I believe that's what the pause is for. And at the risk of running out of air over here, Theta, I think we'll cut to a brief intermission, but we will be right back with the start of round number 2 on Subway. Do not go anywhere. The series is still up in the air with Friendly Fire's map pick. Who knows what's going to happen?
are aware. Our passion is for the
Welcome back, everybody. I told you we'd be tuning in as soon as round 2 kicks off. Map 2, excuse me, kicks off. And here we are on Subway. Friendly Fire versus the Newbies. The Newbies up 1 map to 0 right now in this best of 3 series. And we'll see if they can lock in another one here and ultimately secure the win, or if we'll go to a best of 3, a map 3 decider. We obviously will play that third map out anyway, as we do in the VRML, but curious to see if we can, you know, take it all the way, so to speak, if Friendly Fire can manage to come back on their map pick here. And just looking at Fabs, he seems to be having some issues with his tablet there. Oh, what the? Look at this. Look at this. He's got his pistol out.
His tablet. Wow. Have you ever seen that before?
Never.
I don't think I have.
Never in my life I've seen this. I've seen it propped up on walls and stuff, but I've never seen the pistol used. Like, that's insane. That's insane.
Wow, what an innovation.
And the reason he's doing that, you might be wondering, oh, that's so cool. Why does he do it? Well, you know, whatever. He's just got his tablet propped up with his pistol. It's so that he can look at the tablet without having it tucked onto his back. And the tablet identifies where your team is with dots. And so if he hears gunshots and wants to know if his team has been the winning trade in those gunshots, you can check the tablet and navigate the direction of those shots and then say, oh, okay, look, there's still a dot in that direction. That means that my teammate has survived. And so it's a way that you can sort of get a little bit of a HUD, if you will. It's one of the only ways to gather information in this game outside of communication and audio cues. And so really cool little way to make sure that he knows what's going on. And here comes what seems to be the push, a frag tossed out there by Mr. Tripp. Oh, that's a great flash up and over.
Oh.
Nice one.
Right, and we're seeing more of this sort of deliberate, let's set everything up ahead of time type of play, even on this more close quarters map. Oh, and Fabs peeks out just the wrong time as Foz is peeking that corner near the horseshoe.
I'm crossing the street. Stay here, Foz. Crossing behind you, yeah?
Ooh, and okay, this is actually pretty dangerous because this alleyway, completely unwatched, and they can cap around the corner from Mr. Shrimp. So if they come around this, they can cap without, well, Section 1 now positioning himself a little bit better, but even then, they could just stick to the wall and they would not be seen. They're so focused on this north attack now, and I'm assuming this is deliberate by friendly fire. They're drawing all this attention to the north. Oh, now Mr. Shrimp's coming around, maybe to prevent that cap attempt.
Yeah, really nice redirect of the smoke by Section 1 to deny that vision. And honestly, as that smoke comes out, Shrimp uses the smoke to cross. He wouldn't have been able to get to this position undetected unless that smoke was there. So using the enemy smoke to his advantage, gets himself into a solid spot and has plenty to worry about here, but can rely a bit on his teammates to cover his back. And he's going to peek out, looks for what could have been a quick double, but Cam able to find that trade. The res comes in. Another kill from the north push, and this is a great pinch coming in from friendly fire onto objective.
Wow, 4-up attack there. Very well executed. Like you said, pinching in from both sides, really leaving them with no good options on defense as they pick people off. Well done by friendly fire on that.
Yeah, and something that we do talk about is the comfortability that some teams have on certain maps. The whole strategy of what map do I ban? Do I ban a map that the team that we're going against is good at? Do I ban a map that we're bad at? Do we pick a map that the team is bad at, that the enemy team is bad at? Do we pick a map that we are good at? And do we take the risk of that enemy team also being good at that map? There's a lot of stat and strategy deciding that has to go into your map picks, and these players have all of those stats at their fingertips. They have win rates of teams on certain maps, and they know what teams have done what where, and so friendly fire coming out here on this second map, Subway, they looked very confident for this to be their map pick. I expect them to potentially really run away with this. We'll see. The only reason I say that is simply because that was such a commanding Marsoc win. We'll see how they defend. The newbies have obviously still been playing quite well today as well. Very coordinated and in sync. And we talked about it yesterday, Theta. This map is a map that really lends itself to multiple entries onto objectives. Almost every objective has more than 2 entryways to it. There's in this case 3 main corridors that you have to cover for this objective, and it's like that with nearly every single one on this map. And so it really opens up for the Marsoc to have that next level of strategy where they all split up, go to different lanes to approach, and then sync up the timing. Make sure that they're all there at the same time. And the way you do that is with communication. You check your tablet, you find out where your teammates are, and you act off of it. And we're seeing that with both of these teams today so far. It's just a matter of what team executes it better here in Subway. And if friendly fire can keep it up, we'll be going to a map 3 decider.
Yeah, and it's maps like this where defense just gets so dicey because you have to divert your attention to multiple angles. And like you said, if you time it well, you encircle people, then defenders who are supposed to be watching just one side, just one side, start to almost doubt themselves and say, oh, well, there's shots coming from over here, maybe I need to rotate. And you can use that confusion to your advantage as an attacker.
Yep. We'll see again if the newbies can string it together here. A tough defensive round there, but they now get their chance to attack, and the trading of ammo occurring here. For those maybe unfamiliar with what they're seeing on the screen, these players are trading utilities. So one of them has a rifle, the other has an LMG, and in that LMG kit you have drum mags. And those drum mags can be put into certain assault rifles, depending on what class you pick, what gun you choose. And so there, the drum mags were exchanged between players, and ultimately a few folks getting a lot more bullets than they are initially intended to at the start of a round.
Oh no. Friendly Fire was trying to do a round reset. I could see at least 2 of their players had crashed, and then they all died.
Too late.
Yeah, I think it was too late.
All
I'm
right.
gonna-
Well, a bit of a tech pause then in this rollout. We'll see if, for all intents and purposes, that round does count. If you don't, there's a system in place where if you have issues at the start of a round, you can all forfeit, and it will simply reset the round. You have to do that, however, within the first 15 seconds of the start of a round. If you do it after that, you're simply just killing yourselves in that round and then ultimately giving the round win to the enemy team. And so what happened there was Friendly Fire were too late on their reset, and the round goes to the Newbies. Now, the Newbies could just get into a bit of a technical mess here, but the Newbies could take the round and we continue on. They could tell us to take the round off and we continue on, but then who's on what side gets switched. So I don't know. We'll have to see what the decision is from these teams and how they want to continue here, but we're not the ones that make those decisions, Theta. We're just the casters. We're just here for a good time. We're just here to cast some high-quality Onward action, and so far, it has been pretty high quality. It's been very enjoyable. I think I've learned a thing or two. Hopefully the folks tuning in have as well, if they are maybe trying to learn some strats or trying to develop and get better. I think we have multiple games live now for the Onward VRML, and so if you're not familiar, we also cast games on Twitch throughout the week and on weekends when the games aren't here on venues. In this case, we have another match live on Onward_VRML on Twitch. You can catch the action there if you do want to catch the other game that is playing now. But something that does happen often, we have multiple games getting played across multiple channels. And so I recommend you give all of them a follow, VRML's 2-3 as well. And obviously VR Master League. This channel has a bit more diversity. You may be familiar with Echo Arena being broadcast here during its Season 3, but until Echo kicks off with Season 4, we got Onward for you here, and frankly, I think that's just fine with me. Season 11 has been some of the most enjoyable Onward I've watched, and it's I'm excited to see the rest of this season play out, and also obviously the Season 11 finals. It's just going to be so intense. I don't know what to expect, frankly, and it's as a caster, I'm just already getting hyped up for it. We still got plenty of weeks of regular season left, but Season 11 has just been so fun to tune into so far.
Couldn't agree more. It's just been fireworks pretty much on every cast so far this season.
Yeah, and we are having some tech issues here, so it does look like we are going for a lobby rehost. And now I guess the question I still have is, what is the scoreline we're going with? Are we going to kick it off 1-1, which I imagine we would, but that takes us to a new objective, which is fine because we were going to a fresh objective anyway. The problem, however, is that we've all joined this lobby, and it is the same objective as it was in the first round. So we'll see if we end up sticking around here and playing another 2 rounds on this objective, or if we go to a new one. Not sure what the decision of the teams will be, but
they are rehosting, so it might be worth maybe a quick intermission while we get that worked out.
Yeah, I think we will cut to a brief intermission while we work out the tech difficulties. Thank you all for hanging out and patiently waiting for the beginning of this action. We've got 1 round in the books, or 2 rounds, right? 2 rounds in the books. It's just a matter of continuing that out, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more VRML action once we have all tech difficulties sorted. It'll be just a few minutes.
VRware. Our passion is for the
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for patiently waiting for the action to return. We are here back on the upstairs objective, the market objective. Everyone has loaded in, and we're going to see what Friendly Fire do on defense. They had a great offensive round. They managed to take it with 4 left alive. And now it's going to be Newbies' chance to attack, and I'm curious to see how their attack unfolds. And already it's getting, I would say, pretty aggressive. For Section 1 to push up like he did, that's a risky push because the defense can peek this corner right away. And so, fortunate that they both make their way through. Embolism decides to challenge himself with some opponents there on the stairs. Doesn't find anyone and has to drop back off of that, and now he loses a bit of control.
Yeah, pretty just tucked in defense for the most part. Just kind of waiting for Marsoc to come to them, which pretty standard on this objective.
Yep. Where is
Section 1 and Jason coming in from the south side. Just very carefully trying to creep around this because very common to have people behind this garbage can that's Section 1's peeking.
Yep. Yeah, we've seen all kinds of different ways to clear that corner, and the Newbies just going for the dual peak rollout. It's certainly risky, but ends up not impacting them at all simply because no one's there to defend, so.
But meanwhile, Mr. Shrimp coming up with Fabs UK through this underground stairwell.
Okay, cover me.
Yeah, our eyes on Trip here. He's got 2 great flashes out. Both Section 1 and Jason completely blind. A double flash from Trip. He throws one, and here's comms. Gets information off of it, then throws another, and gets the double kill. A great swing from him. And yes, we'll tune in over to Shrimp, who's up next on the chopping block for this Friendly Fire defense.
Cheers, buddy.
Well, I think Foz will likely have heard that. They were communicating with each other about utility.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he gets that grenade off. Oh, and somehow Mr. Gray does not get taken out by that frag that lands inches from his face. Oh, and a return grenade. Just fantastic throw. Lands right on Fabs.
No hope for him there. McGlock's now in a 1v1 against Trip, and the trade comes through, and Trip ends up getting 3 on this lane, ultimately cutting down the 3-2 split, and Friendly Fire lock in a solid round 2. What a great way for them to kick off their map pick, especially after losing map 1 4-2. They're already up 2-0. Got a nice comfortable lead. Gonna switch up objectives next, and I get very curious to see where we go, and again, how they attack. Because right now, Friendly Fire really seem to be maybe getting warmed up. Maybe the loss on the quarantine fired them up as a squad, because they're looking just a little bit more coordinated here on Subway.
No doubt about it. Mr. Trip was just doing some serious damage from that position right next to the horseshoe entrance. The Newbies just didn't seem ready for that one, but that's all it takes on a CQB map like this is one unexpected angle and a defender who knows how to play it. And suddenly the round goes from being winnable to pretty much hopeless, as we just saw. And now the question is, so Friendly Fire's ahead 2-0. This is the big question mark for new teams, is what do you do when you feel comfortable in a lead?
Yep.
Do you lock down? Do you play to win? Or do you relax and give them an opening? That's the big one in my mind that we're going to have to see answered here.
I do see that we have the folks tuning in from the Boss Fight Beginners matchup. Welcome everyone that was watching that. We do appreciate you all tuning in here today. been so far a pretty exciting matchup, a good back and forth, an even battle, and great coordination from both squads. Very curious, again, to see what our next round looks like and how it shapes up. I think we're going to do a quick... oh, maybe we don't have to.
Yeah, it looks like we got a new objective.
I don't know how. What the heck? How does this game work, Beta?
I don't even know anymore.
What?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Anyway.
Okay, well, yeah. I'm...
Just the Onward gods being the Onward gods. I'm just going to leave it at that.
What? We're on to a new objective. If you know Onward, you know why we're confused. But we're on to a new one with a fresh lobby. Here we are. Scores 2-0. And this is... I don't know. Your thoughts on this objective, Theta. This is one that is hard to defend. And frankly, I'm looking at the Newbies defense. And they've got a pretty standard, I suppose. Jason's there covering the L. They've got the train tracks covered by Mr. Shrimp, the underground by Section 1. Fab's covering the, actually not covering the doorway entry. He's watching the north entry, so he'll be potentially engaging with Foz soon enough. But I'm coming around to the defense now that I look at it. They have a pretty big kill box, but it is a kill box.
Yeah, the only one I would worry about would be McGlock's. They're only sending one attacker through the north so far, and that's a lot of distance to cover that north angle. You could get closer to the objective and still cover that. Fabs is doing that to some degree. Oh, and as we're speaking, Mr. Tripp and Section 1 trade on the south basement stairs.
Jay.
Now it is a 4.5 versus 4, depending on if they decide to get that. Yeah, Jason's going to go down for the revive.
Where was the
So
kill?
now 4v5. I think it was...
Underground.
Let's see. Yeah, it must be. So I'm looking around the objective. I don't see it.
Yeah, it was on the train tracks underground, I think. There's Fabs coming into play. He finds Foz trying to push up, and it's information for Cam to work with. He's got the stair entryway. If he decides to go down the stairs, he's got players on both his right and left, so it's certainly going to be a tough exit, but information that maybe he can work with after hearing Fabs takes those shots. Still, you know, one thing we haven't really talked much about today, we did mention it, you know, the ability to blend in, but truly, when you look at these, the uniforms of the Volk, they're black uniforms, and some of these defensive positions on the train tracks, tucked into these corners, they really blend you in and you're hard to identify, and that's the case for Fabs right now. He's tucked into this dark corner. Going to be tough for Cam to ID. Not so tough when you expose yourself from that corner, though. Good pickup there, and you can see McGlock's reacting off of those shots. But he's running, so this should be footsteps that Cam hears.
And he decides to not check that stairwell and pays the price for that. Now down to a 3v3.
Wow.
-1 in the north. Echo
They
3,
don't have
Echo 3.
anybody. Well, I shouldn't say that. They've got Jason and Section 1 kind of watching out. Never mind. They've got this southern side pretty well locked up. Still a little bit of a pretty massive gap on the north, but looks like the bulk of the attack is coming from the south at the moment, or right on the tracks, I should say.
Yeah, they are getting heavily suppressed. The smokes are out. The nades are there. Embolism's trying to find some shots to the smoke as well. That's a great play, Smoke. It's really forcing a bit of panic out of this defense. Another really well-placed smoke is going to deny Jason vision. Some great utility getting deployed here. And Jason's going to try and follow up with a flash, and that's a good flash. Embolism thankfully there to throw suppressive fire. Cam finds the frag off of the rotation through the smokes. This defense is getting picked apart. Friendly Fire are on pace to get a cap here. If Cam can push up, he can cap.
24 Gray is capping. 24 Gray is capping. This is happening.
The smoke, he's deep in it, and he's punching in the code, trying to get himself 2 points, trying to get the map locked in for Friendly Fire. He's struggling to get the code in, though. He's taking a lot of time. Shrimp is pushing up, and finally, the code gets entered in. Cam does a good job of drawing the diversion and the fire, and Friendly Fire lock in map 2 4-0.
Wow. And yeah, that was a little bit of a delayed cap. I think we've all been there under the stress of the casted match. It's much easier said than done to cap quickly in those conditions. And the smoke, too, makes things more challenging. You have to look down now in order to cap in smoke. So, yeah, at the end of the day, he still got it. That's what counts, but very, very close. If they had just fired a little bit more into the smoke, that could have been stopped. But either way, good job to Friendly Fire closing out this map 4-0. And now we go to a tiebreaker.
We do indeed. The best of 3 decider for map 3. It's what we love to see at the caster's desk, frankly. I don't know where we're going to go, though. What map do we take ourselves to here? There's plenty on the pool. Cargo, Suburbia, Downfall, Snow Peak. A lot of options available there to play. We have the range. We have the close quarters. I'm curious where we're going to be headed here. And the Newbies, after getting seriously punished on Subway, which I think we can all agree is a close quarters map, have decided to push themselves into some range. And we talked about Downfall being troublesome for new teams. And I gotta wonder if all of this is getting factored in by the Newbies squad as they pick Downfall for map 3.
I would think so. It's just such a challenging map to deal with on Marsoc in particular for new teams. So yes, the Newbies are going to start out on Marsoc. I think they've proven they know how to time their attacks fairly well on larger maps, as we saw in Quarantine. And if they can just get one Marsoc round, then I think there's a pretty substantial experience advantage for Newbies on defense, because on this map, for anybody who's unfamiliar with it, it's really, really hard to play offense on, because the defenders can just kind of hang out in these windows, stay very well tucked, and not expose themselves until you're out in the open and you can't fire back effectively. So that would be my thinking if I were, running the strategy for Newbies. I don't know exactly what's going on in their head, but I think, not that I'm biased or anything, it's a sound strategy.
Yeah, the ultimate decider coming down here to the range, and very curious to see how the strats unfold, what kind of spawns we get, if there's going to be players going prone when they spawn in. Are we going to see some good sniper kills? Are we going to see maybe some teams opting for no snipers and instead holding tight angles, which is, for a lot of these objectives, a very viable defensive strategy. You don't need to peek. You don't need to look for kills at range on this map in a lot of cases. You can stay tucked in and simply wait for the team to push objective. You can form a nice kill box around objective and ultimately force good utility usage for a team to succeed. And it's hard. We saw good utility usage from the Newbies. We know they can do it. They just did it there on that last play. And so this is definitely going to be a challenge for Friendly Fire. And, like we said, they've been a team that's come up quick in this season, and now they're getting a bit of a challenge against a team that's been around for a while.
Yep, and we will see how they adapt to that. Looks like, okay, so we have a northeast spawn for the Newbies. And Section 1 gets up on that ridge line, see if he can get any kind of picks. Looks like he's been ID'd, and now that is information from Friendly Fire. They know where the spawn is. And they can start orienting their defense towards that.
Yeah, and already the sniper on the hunt. You can see Embolism tucked into what is, in the EU slang, I believe, West Brothel, or South, West Brothel, I believe is the term.
I don't know. I'm obviously a lifelong NA player, but we usually call it South Brothel, but West Brothel would work as well.
South Brothel, yes. The brothel, either way, the term that gets pulled in. I don't know how that gets over into the NA slang too, but really, truly no reason for it to be a brothel either. I mean, it really doesn't look like one to me, but it's the call-out that was established in the old days and has really persevered over 11 seasons now. And an interesting one, but it is what it is. And Embolism is in there defending with that range.
And Mr. Shrimp is making his way to upper dumpster now. And he's got to be careful because there's a laser coming from the bottom story of helicopter 2-story. And that's basically what they're there to do, is to check that cross, at least early in the round. It looks like he's just trying to get a glimpse, see if he can catch anybody peeking.
Oh. 24 almost has a laser on him.
Objective building area.
Looking out through that window. Instead hunting
Stand by.
for the ridge line.
Block HQ, yeah, 1 down.
Hunting for McGlocks on the hill, but not IDing Shrimp there on that lower end. Oh, he had to have seen him there.
The staging continues in the south. McGlock's running up to lower dumpster now. Embolism's laser hitting that. I don't think he saw McGlock's, if I were to guess. I think he stayed behind it, but just diligently scanning that whole area. Well, Mr. Shrimp putting smoke out will draw attention for sure. And the first, nice shot by Embolism from the
I
SKS.
got lower dumpster.
Takes
Echo
out
4.
Mr. Shrimp as he goes to lower dumpster. And McGlock's trying to return fire and potentially get a refrag through those windows, but Embolism ducks down.
You know, the silencer is an element we've been seeing more of from players. It is relatively, I mean, truly does muffle the sound, and from a distance is pretty hard to hear. Obviously, Embolism ID'd McGlock's in that window and should be wary of peeking again, simply because McGlock's is dialed in here. But a couple of shots there that just go a touch wide, and the push is coming in. The Newbies, decent line. Jason's in the center. Fab's tucked in with smoke deployed there. He's going to try and cross out to the red truck. And obviously the Overwatch. But every spot we cross, you see lasers dialed in from the enemy. Section 1's going to have a tough time crossing out here. He goes down to Mr. Trip. Fabs is up next on the chopping block, and Cam's got his laser dialed in there, as does the long-range sniper. Embolism trying to tag the toes of Fabs underneath the truck.
That's a tough spot to be in because you can get shot through the bottom of that truck. I think Fabs recognizes that, starts moving away. But a 3v5, they only have about a minute and a half, a little bit more left on the clock. Everybody's still got quite a bit of distance to cover. On this map, that's not a good thing. Although Jason just taking, wow, pretty bold line right through the middle of the map.
Yeah, we just kind of brushed over his angle there in the center there behind the wall, but to your point, he's just decided to go straight out into the open. Cam should see this. Got eyes through the door. Gray also, and a lot of bullets getting directed his direction.
Low red car dead.
And the trade, and now McGlock's by himself, no chance. Yeah, no revives available, I shouldn't say. That's friendly fire that has the revive, but 56 seconds to make it all the way from the south to the objective with all four defenders up. Yeah, this is, nothing is impossible, but this is a real tough situation.
McGlock's has a lot to do here, and he's not enough time to do it. Crosses out into the full firing squad of friendly fire, and they're up 1-0 here on the enemy's map pick. The Newbies have chosen into this map, hoping that maybe the range would give them the advantage they need to get back into the series, but after the win on Quarantine, they haven't gotten a point on the board. 5 unanswered points coming in from friendly fire here to put them up 1-0 on map 3.
Yep, and now Newbies really have to win a defensive round. Because if you lose both an offensive and defensive round on downfall, it's not impossible to come back from. I've seen those comebacks happen, but your life is just so much more challenging in that situation. The teams that really know how to play this map, they're perfectly fine with trading Volk rounds. in most cases, and they just try to squeeze in one Marsoc round if possible. But yeah, they really, in my opinion, they really can't drop a defensive round in this situation.
Curious to see how the offensive rollout for Friendly Fires works out. See what the Newbies' defensive style is. You know, when you pick the map, typically you end up going on the Marsoc side. The map pick goes to the Newbies in this case, and then Friendly Fire get to pick which side they want to be on. And so Friendly Fire could have opted to be on Marsoc, but they have instead decided to start with Volk, and so that defensive advantage is something that is often talked about amongst teams and here on the cast. Sometimes you see it, depending on the series and depending on the teams. Sometimes you don't. In the case of Quarantine, we didn't really see a defensive advantage come into play. It was more Marsoc wins than anything. With Downfall, like I said, a lot of these objectives lend themselves to just having a very small kill box around objective. And with how big the map is, it then does come down to the Marsoc to execute. It does come down to them to push up through what is so much space and ultimately get up to the objective without dying. And it is a task. It is a challenge. We'll see how the Newbies set up their defense if they expose themselves early to any sort of pick opportunities, and if Friendly Fire can continue to put points on the board. Already looking for some early picks, and to your point made last round, giving away their position.
That's a trade-off you have to think carefully about. If you don't think you can get a clear kill on somebody, in many cases it's not worth taking the shots. But if you can get that 4v5 even advantage right away, that's huge. So I understand taking shots. Just have to be very careful about that, because once they know where your spawn is, they can start creating a more intelligent defense around that.
Yeah, and I mean, truly what we're seeing here is the most meta of meta rollouts. You take your shots early from that spawn, maybe you get a pick. If you don't, you invest 3 into going to Ravine. In this case, they're sending 2 to that far south and 1 up the middle. And so going for the full spread from this Friendly Fire offense, and this is what really tests a new team. Can you stay coordinated when you're not next to your teammate? Can you stay coordinated when you're spread so far thin? And I'm curious to see if they can execute. Right now, they've got a great line.
That's encapsulating it perfectly, because this is about how can you coordinate when you can't see each other. So it's really a test of communication on offense. On defense, you can have a much better sense of what's going on because you're usually much closer to each other. But to get timing right, get your movement correct when you're spread across a map on offense like this, it's really hard. And that's why I think it, again, favors the more experienced team in most cases.
I do like this defensive position from Mr. Shrimp. A bit forward. One that was common in its initial deployment, but since then I've seen very few people actually tuck into. And it is a solid spot to hold the center of the map from. It's just more of a surprise spot. You know, you kind of pop up when you hear footsteps around you. And so I think that's what Shrimp's intention is. He's going to stay disciplined and tucked in until he can spring the trap.
And 24 Gray has taken White House, hoping he can get some shots off on somebody, but Newbies playing pretty disciplined defense. They're not peeking anything.
Yeah, and we've been looking at the offensive rollout and how nice of the line they've set up. The defensive setup, to your point, is nicely tucked in. McGlocks has a very aggressive position, but is one that I would say is unexpected. A solid spot to hold early from that south rotation and ultimately catch people out. And again, that's a late angle, right? One of those angles that will catch somebody out when they're deep into the rotation and completely exposed. So a solid hold there, and the rest of this defense set up around objective with a bit of a kill box. If you put all these lasers together, I'm sure you would end up getting them to cross nicely all around objective. I think maybe the one weak point truly is this north entry. If Section 1 goes down, they may find some success with Camp Street and Foz pushing in.
Yeah,
think
McGlock's
he
in
needs
kind of an
South
interesting
White
spot
House
too.
or,
He's in lower
I
dumpster,
don't know.
looking straight to the south.
Yeah.
And if a north attack happens and they start taking people out, he doesn't have a lot of great rotations to save that. McGlock's, I've just noticed this pattern with them for the newbies. McGlock's tends to be that person out in more of the,
I think there's more
I don't know,
than one
flanker
north.
or lurk type defensive position. So far, it really hasn't hurt them too much, but yeah, if I were friendly fire, I would be thinking about that quite a bit after watching this footage.
That late angle will do ultimately a lot of work if the team pushes from that side. They could completely avoid ever crossing that angle.
It's funny to see the similarities between these two teams because they're doing roughly the same thing. Embolism was even peeking. Oh, and Mr. Shrimp gets Mr. Trip. Oh, and Embolism about to run across McGlock's line. And there it is. That lurk position paying off. And now friendly fire down to 3 versus newbies full 5.
Section 1's caught Foz behind a tree. And so Foz has very
Tree.
few options of
Maybe
movement
for 1
here.
minute, I'm just gonna keep him busy.
Yeah, in this situation, I'm not sure what you do aside from maybe think very thin thoughts. And hope you don't get picked. Maybe throw a smoke and just run for the hills if you can.
Mr. Shrimp's position pays off again. Gets another kill. The trade there. McGlock's gets his kill in the basement. And now it's all up to Foz. And one other. Well, Gray, as I say that, he goes down. Now it is all up to Foz. He is able to get out from behind the tree. But he's in a 1v4 with 20 seconds left. Nowhere near objective. I think it's pretty safe to say newbies have locked this one in. And we're tied up here in map 3. This series, I think, is just. I think we very well could be on track for a 3-3 round 7.
And there's the timer. Yeah, as we're seeing, it's tough playing offense on this map, no matter what. Newbie struggled with it, friendly fire struggled with it, so it's just a matter of who's going to break this, who's going to get the Marsoc round over the other. That's usually what cracks open a map for one team on downfall.
Yeah, it's. Again, the objectives and spawns do end up determining a lot of how these rounds roll out. Is it going to be slow-paced? Is it going to be a matter of creating a tight kill box? Or are there going to be some very early engagements? And there are certainly plenty of objectives on Downfall with certain spawns that do lend themselves to pretty quick action. This new objective, I think, is another sort of longer range one, but still is a new objective to this map. And so for, 10 seasons, players have played this map without anything fresh being implemented. Well, not anything. There's been plenty of changes to Downfall for 10 seasons, but new objectives is a big thing that has really shooken up a lot of these old maps, and I'm excited to see what the defensive strat is.
On this objective in particular, there's a weakness that a lot of teams are not accounting for, which is this east side room, because you can run in on the objective and be completely in cover. If somebody's not in there, you can get a cap off before they can do anything about it. Even if you try to reach your gun through one of those windows, you can't catch them. And so any team that doesn't watch that east side doorway, watch out. If you don't have coverage over there, the cap is wide open, and we've seen it in a bunch of matches this season already.
We have indeed. A good solid kill box goes a long way to shut down that entry. And so I think that we should see a very similar defensive setup to what we saw with the last objective. It is in a similar spot, a little differently placed, and to your point, has different weaknesses. But we will probably still see a defensive rollout. The interesting thing about this objective, Theta, is that I think it's one of the only ones that has multiple Volk spawn points.
Yeah, I think it's either 2 or 3 objectives that have that now. But yeah, it mixes things up a little bit. It forces you to think a little bit more about your positioning and what you can run to before Marsoc peaks the ridge line. Yeah, okay, we're seeing already Cam Street in that east side room specifically to stop that cap, I would assume. And then they also have coverage from 24 Gray watching down. The only real vulnerability here is the north. Nobody's watching north so far. And if somebody creeps around over there, that could be a problem for them.
Wow. Febs has managed to find one with suppressive fire, and oftentimes you just put rounds down range hoping that you keep them tucked in. You don't actually even know that you've got a kill. And so I don't think they know that right now they're into a 4v4. Mr. Tripp certainly did radio in his kill, though, and so Friendly Fire have an accurate kill count, but I don't know about the newbies.
It's so funny. It's the third round in a row where we've seen people in this same spot trying to peek. It's like the lasers come right onto them, like right there. Oh, there it is, and they're taking shots now. Oh, Mr. Shrimp cannot make that cross. 24 Gray catches him out. And now 4v3 defensive advantage to Friendly Fire.
Yeah, and I was thinking, sometimes it's a visual bug where you don't see smokes from the first-person perspective, and so I was thinking, oh, maybe there was a smoke there, but no, there's no utility deployed on that cross. That cross is incredibly risky to take without any smokes, and you can see why. Gets absolutely punished trying to cross over. And to the counterpoint, the cross that happened from Friendly Fire when they crossed that angle, they walked the smoke across. So, very different means of crossing that gap. We'll see if McGlocks also tries to send it without any utility, and if that's the case, again, I think he's going to run into some trouble.
.24 Gray takes out another, gets McGlocks down. He is not in a position where anybody could reasonably swing around and get him and still have time on the clock. I mean, we're approaching halfway through the match, or halfway through the round, I should say. Now, Section 1's going to go for it. So they're splitting up their attack now to go for that revive. That's going to burn a lot of time off the clock. And he's in a position where if he gets the revive and he's not careful, they could both get picked off. Or at the very least, make it a pointless revive because McGlocks gets shot again.
Yeah, a big commitment to getting this res, but it is coming in. Section 1's rotating all the way around into the ravine, going undetected. Right now, McGlocks should just be trying to identify where players are. And let's look at this little position that we have not keyed into yet. At least I haven't. Embolism way up here on the hilltop. And this rotation is not going to go well. The Section 1 is going to be completely exposed here when he tries to go for this res.
And this is sort of the benefit of watching teams that don't normally get casted that much, because you get to see more unorthodox positions like that. Yeah, it's a hard position because if you get ID'd, you're not really able to leave. But as a result, people never look up there. So they're not expecting anybody to be a threat. So they could go for that res, like you said, and this could get ugly.
Wait, so is that one by lower or off the dumpster?
And all Embolism has to do is just peek up and check ravine. But he doesn't want to expose himself. To your point, this is a dangerous position. He's relying on the cover of the wall. Now that the shots are out, maybe he'll take a look. And now that Section 1's crossing out in the open, I'm certain he'll find these shots. Oh, he does it. He pulls off from the angle. The smoke comes in. Is Section going to get this? Yes, Embolism doesn't want to peek up. Wow. Wow, he gets the red. Section 1. And now McGlock's still completely exposed to Embolism, but no peek coming in.
Well, I can understand both thoughts here because there's a minute and 15 seconds left. They know Embolism's just watching towards the objective at this point, and he knows if anybody's going to get there, they're going to have to run. They're not going to be able to check a lot of angles, And if McGlox in particular takes any shots, Embolism will have an instant peak on him. Wow.
Yeah, it is going to be a late angle hold, though. To your point, he's just watching objective.
Oh, and he should see the back of McGlox now. He's looking down towards the objective. I don't know how much he can see his lasers
he's
kind of
tunneled.
hitting
He's
the rock.
Think about how he's looking. He's one-eyed into the scope, looking at a range. He's looking right over the head of McLox right now, looking through that sight. Still, he doesn't see him, and finally, his attention gets directed down. Now that position's blown, but frankly, it's just A-okay. The rest of the defense properly set up. Friendly fire, hold well against the attack, and take a lead 2-1.
Boy, just coming down to the wire there, and that unorthodox spot paying off, because if he wasn't there, that's a much harder cap to defend against. He didn't have a ton of time left, but even then, if he crosses that road, that's pretty much a done deal.
Yeah, it was the right play, truly, because he would have had Overwatch onto the second story, so his teammate that was drawing the attention with footsteps close would have allowed for the pick to come through onto that second story, and so just really a very important kill to get secured, to your point, Theta, and ultimately shuts down what could have been maybe a 3-1 lead for the Newbies, and instead Friendly Fire have the advantage. They go on the attack next. Want to see how they decide to approach this objective, if they'll take those early shots on the hill, or maybe they'll get a different spot.
Like we were talking about, there's now different Volk spawns too, so you have to think very carefully about where you're positioning people, because if you run out in the open for too long getting into position, depending on the spawn that Marsoc has, you could get picked off, and going into a round 4v5, it's not the end of the world, but it will make your life more challenging than it needs to be in many cases. So let's see, we are still on this objective. Just looking at the distribution of kills here. So the big one that Friendly Fire has to be careful about is exactly what we've been seeing the last couple of Marsoc rounds, is just timeouts. It's so hard to get your timing correct on this, and if you make one mistake on a cross, you get picked, especially if you're near objective. So it's just a matter of whether the Newbies are going to be able to punish those mistakes, punish those crossings or not, and force them into a position to be reckless a little bit, especially if they're starting to run out of time. Right, it looks like we have a southeast spawn, so basically a ravine or a valley spawn, depending on which callouts you prefer. And Volt gets the northwest spawn, so pretty much opposite sides of the map, which very good for Volk.
Yeah, it would have been maybe a little bit more dicey if they had had that early spawn in the north, but instead they get spawn on objective, and so the Newbies get to roll out comfortably to their positions. Fabs in Section 1 take control of the bottom floor, and really, I'm looking at defense. It is heavily stacked on that north side. A south approach would go a long way here.
I think they are taking roughly the same idea. Once again, people at Upper Dumpster, just not quite the exact same angle this time, but still trying to make that cross. No smoke, just going naked through the open. Just escapes with his life, barely, and then he peeks it again. Oh, there's smoke.
There's the smoke,
in front of,
yeah. An M203 smoke deployed, yeah. Doesn't come through sometimes on the first-person perspective, but yeah, the smoke deployed there, and so there was a gap in the smoke. He wasn't fully covered. He's fortunate that he doesn't get picked, but for now he can continue to peek and then layer his smokes here, and we're seeing a lot of utility getting deployed here. And to the point, Tripp is really far forward, almost like the rest of his team back behind him supporting, while he just charges in and already takes control of the center 3 story.
Revive comes out
We got a
from
revive on
McGlocks
North
onto
Purple.
Jason, bringing Newbies back up to full strength. Ooh, is that a sniper? Hey. Yeah, 24 Gray looking through the 4 times up in White House, trying to pick people off, but they are not cooperating on defense.
No, they are playing pretty tucked in here, and that's how they need to play this objective. They need to stay disciplined, not peek out, especially now when Friendly Fire ultimately has some great angles onto them. They cannot afford to get risky and look for kills. As I say that, Fab's fortunate he doesn't get picked off by Trip.
Friendly Fire now smoking at upper red truck. And they're making better progress on this round in terms of
I'm
getting
in
close,
center,
because it's
Talon.
about
There's someone on
3
the roof
minutes,
with me.
20 seconds, and with the exception of 24 Gray up in White House, they're much closer to the objective.
Red truck.
Pretty risky swing there from Jason. He drops off of his covered position and takes up a spot against the wall and gets one, but ultimately now can be picked. The wall really does do nice to blend in with that dark Volk coverage, and so I'm surprised to see it do work, but yeah, sniper shots coming in there. Jason looking for the confirm, but Embolism is trying to keep things even for his team. 2 downs and 2 reses available for Friendly Fire, 1 down and 1 res available for the Newbies. We'll see if any of those come through. I don't think Trips is going to get picked up. I don't know how easy it's going to be for Cam to get up to Foz.
And Jason has to potentially rotate back up to McGlocks, but they're watching from lower red truck. If he runs up that staircase, that will
Yeah, he's
probably
done.
end poorly for him. Oh, and before he even can think about it, Embolism puts shots right on his forehead. And wow, now we're down to 2.5 defenders.
Yeah.
Real quick.
3 left alive for Friendly Fire, but I don't know if anyone has any accurate kill counts right now. There's been plenty of trades, a lot of shots coming out, a lot of downs behind cover. Newbies don't know how many they have full killed. Friendly Fire probably the same, and so these players just trying to discuss how they're going to roll out, what it's going to look like, making sure they convey all of this to their team so that no one gets confused. And, well, 3 now pushing in with 1:20 left.
Now Foz and Embolism running up the heli 2-story. Sounds like they've already called out Fabs, so they should know he's in there.
Yeah, Gray doing a good job to draw his attention. A lot of suppressive fire. Does throw a smoke out in that main gap that Fab should be covering, and ultimately finds the pick. A massive pick. Foz can cap this. Section 1 does not have good coverage. Foz can simply walk up to the outside corner, punch this code in, and have it secured, but takes the wide route. Embolism's going to take the close route in Section 1.
This is a cap.
He
This
feels
is a cap.
confident with his pick, and it's overconfidence. Embolism punches it in. Friendly Fire take the dub against the Newbies. It was looking for a moment there that the Newbies were going to be able to lock in what I would say an underdog win. You know, they are ranked 14 versus the Friendly Fire ranked 10, but this new squad from Friendly Fire is looking good here today, and they deserved the win they got. 8-1 in the last 2 maps. Certainly a solid performance from them once they got loose.
Yeah, I guess it turns out that the connoisseurs were onto something there. Yeah, still not sure if I feel like the ratio was quite accurate, but
No.
Friendly Fire for sure making a statement in this match, and they will continue to move up the ranks.
Definitely a team that you got to watch out in your gaps in coverage for. They will certainly go for caps there. The double send for the cap was really nice, honestly. And I think after killing 1, he felt so confident that the second wouldn't be there. So ultimately a good play from Friendly Fire to lock in their finals map win and ultimately the series. They'll be pushing up in rank, breaking into that top 10. Ultimately, eventually challenge. I said ultimately 3 times. Eventually challenging boss fight beginners those top squads that you are familiar with on the EU end. Quick shout out to everyone that was tuning in over on Venues, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. We greatly appreciate everyone that stops by to watch the VRML action. A reminder that we have other channels that go live over on Twitch at Onward_VRML. Also, if you want to get involved in the league, it's not too late. You can do that by going to VRML.com, where you can register for a team. You can sign up to be a reservist, where you can substitute for a team if they need you. You can also just get involved in the community Discord. Head on over to VRML.com for all the info you need. Also, follow the social medias, the Twitter, where you can catch live updates of when we go live. Also, a quick shout out to all of our sponsors. For maybe those unfamiliar with who they are, Pro2VR offers great mounts for your controllers so that you can stabilize your aim in-game. VR Cover offers great face covers to increase the comfort of your chosen headset. B-Haptics offers full vest haptic feedback so you can feel the bullet impact. Cyber Shoes allows you to run in-game and therefore move in-game. It's really a cool system where you actually feel like you're running while playing VR. We also have Rebuff Reality coming with power packs and all sorts of accessories. VR wear with great clothing and merch. If you want to get VRML water bottles, any of that stuff, head on over to VR Wear to do that. And obviously a shout out to HyperX. The mic you're hearing me on is a Quadcast HyperX S with RGB technology. And so if you want to pick up one of these, I would highly recommend it. Obviously, it's good sound quality because you're hearing it here first. That's the full package, Theta. That'll be it from us here at the desk. Appreciate you again so much for tuning in. My name has been Nightfire with 2 E's, my co-caster Theta. We'll see you all next week with more Onward VRML action.